As we reached the summit of the low, pine-covered ridge and gazed down into the scorching, dry valley, Wolf Voice, my Cheyenne interpreter, gestured toward a small log cabin near the green line of alders where the Rosebud River flowed and said, "That's his place, To Moon." As we approached, we encountered a perplexing fork in the road. The left path skirted the corner of a wire fence, while the right led into a field. Initially, we veered left, but a man standing at the cabin door waving a blanket directed us to the right. Drawing closer, we observed To Moon spreading blankets in the meager shade of his modest cabin. Some young Cheyennes were sharpening a sickle nearby, and a couple of children were playing around the small log stables. The barnyard and structures resembled those of a white settler on the barren new sod. It was all desolate and unattractive, the abode of poverty. As we stepped down from our horses and approached the door, To Moon emerged to greet us, extending his hand in welcome. "How?" he exclaimed warmly, with a heartfelt and drawn-out note of hospitality. He gestured for us to take a seat on the blankets he had laid out upon seeing our arrival. His greeting was marked by utmost dignity and sincerity. As we settled down, he fetched tobacco and a pipe. He stood tall, an elderly man with a clear brown complexion, possessing a broad chest, erect posture, and a martial demeanor. His friendly face exuded warmth, and his demeanor was both courteous and dignified. As he prepared his tobacco, Wolf Voice conveyed my intentions to To Moon. I told To Moon, "I'm here to hear your story of the Custer battle. I've heard you were a chief there. After you share the story, I'd like to take some photographs of you. I want you to signal with a blanket, just as the great chiefs did in battle." Wolf Voice relayed this message along with one from the agents. At each pause, To Moon responded with deep, resonant sounds of understanding. "I, ho." These utterances are often called grunts, but they were drawn-out exhales, rich with meaning. Then a prolonged silence ensued. The elderly man pondered. It took time to transition from the quiet of the sweltering valley, the shelter of his modest cabin, and the wire fence enclosing his pasture, back to the days of his youth. When he eventually spoke, it was with deliberate thoughtfulness. His expression grew increasingly solemn, and his gaze turned inward. To Moon isn't fond of recalling the days of battle, but considering you're compiling a book and the agent mentions you're a friend of Grinnell, George B. Grinnell, respected and admired by the Cheyennes, Blackfeet, and Gros Ventre, I'll share the truth with you. It's been quite a while, and articulating my thoughts isn't effortless. In the spring of 1876, my Cheyenne tribe and I were encamped along Powder River with 50 lodges. The location is near what is now Fort McKinney. One morning, soldiers led by Three Fingers, Colonel Mackenzie, charged my camp. We were taken by surprise and scattered, abandoning our ponies. The soldiers seized all our horses. That night, while the soldiers slept, leaving the horses unguarded, we quietly approached and reclaimed them, then departed. We traveled a great distance, and one day we stumbled upon a large Sioux encampment at Charcoal Butte. We joined the Sioux camp and enjoyed ourselves, with plenty of grass, game, and good water. Crazy Horse was the chief of the camp. Sitting Bull had his camp a short distance away near the Little Missouri River. Crazy Horse expressed, "I'm pleased you're here. We're gearing up to fight the white man again." The camp was already occupied by wounded men, women, and children. I replied to Crazy Horse, "All right, I'm prepared to fight. I've fought before. My people have been killed, my horses stolen. I'm ready to fight." The old man paused for a moment, his face assuming a serious and dignified expression. At that time, I thought the Great Spirits had positioned the Sioux over there. He motioned to the right. "And the white men and Cheyennes over here," pointing to two places on the left, expecting them to fight. I thought the Great Spirits enjoyed seeing the conflict. It was like a game to them, so I thought a lot about fighting. As he spoke, I felt momentarily the influence of a cynical deity whose entertainment was the wars among men. Around May, when the grass was tall and the horses were robust, we packed up and headed towards the mouth of the Tongue River. Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, and everyone else traveled up the Rosebud. There, we engaged in a significant battle with General Crook and emerged victorious. While many soldiers lost their lives, few Indians were killed. It was a fierce encounter, with plenty of smoke and dust. From there, we crossed the divide and set up camp in the Little Horn Valley. Everyone thought, now we're out of the white man's reach. He can have his land, and we'll have ours. After a few days, one morning while I was in camp north of Sitting Bull, a Sioux messenger came and announced, "Get ready, cook, and prepare for a big dance." The Cheyennes got busy cooking, cutting tobacco, and preparing. We planned to dance all day, feeling happy to be far from the white man. I went to water my horses at the creek, washed them with cool water, then took a swim myself. I returned to camp on foot. As I approached my lodge, I glanced up the Little Horn towards Sitting Bull's camp. I noticed a huge cloud of dust rising, resembling a whirlwind. Soon Sioux horsemen dashed into camp, yelling, "Soldiers are coming! Lots of white soldiers!" I dashed into my lodge and urgently told my brother-in-law, "Get the horses ready, the white men are approaching. Everyone hurry and grab your horses." Outside, from far up the valley, I heard a war cry, "Hey-ay, hey-ay!" along with gunfire rapidly coming closer. I couldn't spot any Indians. People were scrambling to saddle their horses. After I secured my horse, a Sioux warrior returned, warning, "Many soldiers are on their way." Then he directed the women, "Step aside. We're gearing up for a challenging battle." I responded, "Okay, I'm prepared." Mounting my horse, I rode out into the camp. I called out to the people in a frenzy, "I am Two Moon, your leader. Don't flee. Stand your ground and fight. We must confront the white soldiers. I'll remain, even if it costs me my life." I rode swiftly toward Sitting Bull's camp. There I witnessed the white soldiers engaged in battle in a line, Reno's men. The flat land was covered with Indians. They began to push the soldiers, all mixed together. Sioux, then soldiers, then more Sioux, all firing their weapons. The air was thick with smoke and dust. I observed the soldiers retreat and descend into the riverbed like stampeding buffalo. They had no opportunity to find a crossing. The Sioux pursued them up the hill, where they encountered more soldiers in wagons. Then messengers arrived, reporting that more soldiers were threatening to harm the women, prompting the Sioux to turn back. Chief Gall was present, fighting bravely. Crazy Horse was also there. Afterward, I headed back to my camp and halted the women from moving the lodges. While I was mounted on my horse, I spotted flags emerging over the hill to the east, like this. He raised his fingertips. Suddenly, the soldiers arose all together, all on horseback, like this. He put his fingers behind each other to indicate Custer, appearing in columns of fours. They organized into 3 groups, squadrons, with some distance between them. Then a bugle sounded, and they dismounted, while some soldiers led the horses back over the hill. Then the Sioux galloped up the ridge from all directions, riding really fast. The Cheyennes took the left path. Then the gunfire started, rapid, rapid, pop, 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 very fast. Some soldiers were on their knees, some standing. Officers were all up front. The smoke was thick like a huge cloud, and wherever the Sioux went, the dust billowed up like smoke. We surrounded them from all sides, moving like water swirling around a stone. We shoot, ride fast, then shoot again. Soldiers fall, horses tumble on them. Soldiers in line drop, but one man rides back and forth along the line, shouting all the while. He rode a chestnut horse with a white face and white forelegs. I don't know who he was. He was a brave man. Indians kept circling around and around, and the soldiers only managed to kill a few. Many soldiers fell. Eventually, all the horses were killed except for 5. Occasionally, a man would break free and dash towards the river, only to fall shortly after. Finally, about 100 men and 5 horsemen stood on the hill, all bunched together. Throughout, the bugler kept blowing his commands. He was also very brave. Then, a chief was killed. I heard it was Longhair Custer, but I'm not sure. Then the 5 horsemen and the group of men, maybe around 40, started toward the river. The man on the chestnut horse led them, shouting all the while. He was dressed in a buckskin shirt with long black hair and a mustache. He fought fiercely with a large knife. All his men were coated in white dust. I couldn't tell if they were officers or not. One man, all alone, ran far down toward the river, then circled back over the hill. I thought he might escape, but then a Sioux fired and struck him in the head. He was the last man. He had braids on his arms. All the soldiers were dead and their bodies were stripped. After that, it was hard to distinguish who were officers. The bodies remained where they fell. We didn't have a dance that night. We were filled with sorrow. The next day, 4 Sioux chiefs, 2 Cheyennes, and myself, 2 Moon, went to the battlefield to count the dead. One man carried a bundle of sticks. As we approached each dead man, we took a stick and passed it to another man, counting the dead in this manner. There were 388 bodies in total. Among them, there were 39 Sioux and 7 Cheyennes killed, along with approximately 100 wounded. Some white soldiers were slashed with knives to ensure they were dead, and the war women mutilated some bodies. Most of them were left where they lay. We reached the man with the big mustache. He was lying down the hill toward the river. Custer fell higher up on the ridge. The Indians didn't remove his buckskin shirt. The Sioux said, "That's a big chief. That's long hair." I can't say. I hadn't seen him before. The man on the horse with the white face was the bravest of them all. That day, as the sun was setting, our young men raced up the Little Horn, riding hard. We spotted many white soldiers arriving in a large boat, and smoke was billowing up. I gathered my people, and we quickly moved up the Little Horn into Rotten Grass Valley. We stayed there for 3 days, then rode back swiftly along our previous path to the east. Sitting Bull returned to the Rosebud and headed down the Yellowstone, journeying northward. I didn't encounter him again. The elderly man took a moment to pack his pipe. With his tale concluded, his thoughts returned to his impoverished people, living on the desolate land where rainfall was a rare occurrence. That was ages ago. Now, in my old age, my perspective has shifted. I'd rather witness my people residing in homes, enjoying music and dance. You've discussed battle with me, and I've recounted tales from the distant past. But those days are gone. My focus now is on 3 things. Firstly, securing our reservation with a fence to keep out white settlers and keep our youth within. Secondly, I aspire to witness our people thriving in cattle ranching and dairy production. Lastly, I desire to see our people attending school to embrace the ways of the white man. That's all there is to it. The chief's broad forehead exuded a sense of calm strength, and his gestures possessed a striking and dignified grandeur. The way he stretched out his arms, gazed contemplatively, and spoke with a deep voice conveyed a thoughtful solemnity that left a profound impression. His voice held no trace of anger or lingering fierceness. In the old man's discourse, everything robust, refined, and distinctive about the Cheyenne character unfolded. He appeared as the true leader and reflective individual he is, enduring injustice with patience and extending courtesy even to adversaries.